In this video, I'm going to be comparing the very popular Fender Blues Jr. with the classic, well-established 5E3 Tweed Deluxe. I know some people could care less about the technical details of why or how I compared these amps. So for you guys out there, go ahead and skip to this and I will spare you the details. For those folks out there like me who care about the nerdy details, let me start by saying why I'm comparing these amps to begin with. So the Fender Blues Jr. is an amp that I've had for a very long time. I've used it for about 7 years. This one in particular is the limited edition version, which basically is a cosmetic difference. It has the wine red Torlex with the wheat grill, but more importantly, it has the upgraded speaker, the Cannabis Rex speaker. And no, it's not smokable, sorry guys. The reason it's called the Cannabis Rex is because the speaker cone is made out of hemp. And the reason I picked the limited edition, not only because I like the way it looks, but this speaker is extremely efficient. It's one of the most efficient speakers out there, which in turn means it is very loud. I was coming down from a 50 watt amp to a 15 watt and I was a little worried that I wasn't gonna be able to keep up with the drummer, but I can assure you this Fender Blues Jr. can keep up with the drummer absolutely no problem. More on that later. Now, the reason I recently purchased a 5E3 is this one in particular is a clone. I cannot afford an actual 5E3. This one is the Tubedepot kit, which actually is not much more than a Fender Blues Jr., which is another reason why I'm comparing these two. They're very similar price. Now, the 5E3 clone you have to build yourself. That kind of adds some cost, I guess, time cost in there, but really they're pretty similar priced. I believe the 5E3 is around $750 and the Blues Jr. is around $700. So, and if you get like the limited edition, they're probably about the same price. Now, the reason I went with the 5E3 is because I really like the overdrive sound. I was comparing that with a deluxe reverb, which obviously is like the most famous Fender amp. I wanted to upgrade from the Blues Jr. because it just wasn't doing it for me. I'll explain more in my thoughts after the sound comparison. The other reasons why these are two amps that would compare well together is they're both one-channel amps. They're both about the same size and weight. They're both by Fender. Obviously the one is a clone of a Fender, but they're both Fenders. One is a more modern Fender. The other is one of the first. The 5E3 is one of the first amps that Fender released in the 50s. So this is, I think, a pretty reasonable comparison. Oh yeah, and they're both the same wattage too. They're both 112 combos, similar weight and size, same wattage pretty much, and they're both by Fender, kind of. So how did I compare these two? Now, the 5E3 is a very, very basic, pure circuit. There's only 2 volume knobs and a tone knob. So 3 knobs total, whereas the Blues Jr. has volume, treble, middle, bass, master volume, and reverb. For this comparison, since the Tweed Deluxe does not have reverb, I have turned off the reverb, the natural spring reverb in the Blues Jr., and I have used my Digitech Polara reverb pedal set to spring, and that's running before the amp. So the reverb unit is exactly the same pedal, same placement, using the same cables. I'm just switching cables back and forth. I'm using a looper pedal to loop the exact same performance for both amps, so we have identical performances on playing through both speakers. I'm using the exact same mic, the SM57, and I have marked the center cone of both speakers, and I'm moving the same exact microphone back and forth because I do not have 2 SM57s, unfortunately. That would have been a easier way to do it, but I have marked them both so there's the same microphone, same placement, running through the same guitar. I'm using a Sheraton, Epiphone Sheraton. I will be using humbuckers and single coils, and that will be displayed on screen during the sound comparison. but it's the same guitar running through a looper pedal, so the performance is identical, same exact reverb, same cable going into both amps through the same exact microphone and the same microphone placement through the same interface. So this is about as close as you possibly can get to eliminating all other variables. Now, like I said, there's only very limited parameters on the Tweed Deluxe. So what I did was, instead of trying to obviously match the parameters, that wouldn't make any sense because they're so different, I just used my ears and tried to make the most close, similar sound as I could with both amps. So I have a clean sound, I have a slight breakup, edge of breakup kind of overdrive sound, then a straight up overdrive sound, and then a cranked amp. The 5E3 definitely has a fuzz territory that I don't go into in this video because it's just so different than the Blues Jr. Like, you can't get that sound at all through the Blues Jr. So there is no point of cranking both volumes all the way to 12, which is basically like a fuzz sound. I also used a overdrive pedal, which is a clone of a Tube Screamer. And that was the last clip that you'll see. And that's like a heavier sound, just to kind of see how they both take pedals. And you will be surprised, I promise. One last thing to mention about this comparison is the volume. The volume on the Blues Jr. is significantly louder. So if all you care about is volume, you don't even have to listen to what these sound like, because the Blues Jr. is absolutely louder. And a lot of it has to do with the speaker, because like I said before, the speaker is very efficient. Clean, loud volume, the Blues Jr. is going to have way more of it for you. Even cranked overdriven, the Blues Jr. is just significantly louder. And it's almost too loud. That's another reason why I'm looking to switch amps to this Tweed, is because it almost is so loud that unless you're playing with a full band with earplugs, it's hard, even with the master volume, to get it to a reasonable volume. It kind of just immediately wants to get loud. So what I've done in this comparison is I've matched the volumes in post. So I've gone through all of the sounds and I've matched the levels identical in my DAW to make sure that the volumes are the same, because a lot of times when you hear something that's louder, you immediately think that it sounds better, and I don't want the volume to get in the way of the tone comparison. In almost every comparison, the Blues Jr. was louder than the Tweed, so something to keep in mind. So that kind of wraps up my setup and why I'm doing this. Let's go into the sound samples, and then at the end I will kind of go into what I heard and any thoughts I have, and then also any recommendations to someone who may be choosing between these two. So let's get into it. Alright, so my thoughts. Let's start with the clean sound. I think the clean sound is fantastic on both of these amps. And I was actually surprised how well the Blues Jr., because to be honest, I thought the 5E3 was just going to blow away the Blues Jr. altogether. Just because it's such a more sought after circuit. It has more history to it. It's just one of those sounds that have been on a lot of records, and the Blues Jr. is kind of more of a entry level tube amp. Like, it's probably, besides the Pro Jr., it's the most affordable Fender tube amp you can get. So you would think that there would be a bigger difference between the two, but I think both of them sounded fantastic. The Blues Jr. was definitely brighter. The Tweed has a more warm sound to it. And I typically go for brighter sounds, but for some reason I'm down the middle. It kind of just depends on what you're looking for. They're both fantastic clean sounds. Now the overdrive or slight breakup sound, I have to say the Tweed. Everything after the clean tone for me, the Tweed just took it away, and that's where it really shined. I think it's just had a smoother overdrive, more pleasing, way more bass through every tone. I've even cranked the bass on some, and you've seen, I made sure I showed you all my settings, and I tried not to do any extreme EQing on the Blues Jr., but even with the bass cranked all the way, it still cannot get near as much bass as the Tweed Deluxe. And that's one of the main complaints I've had with the Blues Jr. is there's just not enough low end. But I still think if all you need is clean with some slight overdrive every once in a while, the Blues Jr. is still a fantastic choice. It's when you get to gain pedals that are being put before it, like we heard, the Blues Jr. just sounds way boxier, even though the Tweed Deluxe is only like an inch bigger. It just sounds so much bigger of a sound, and it has so much more low end, and there's a very annoying mid-range spike around 600 hertz I've noticed in the Blues Jr., and I've even tried to EQ it out in post. There's no EQ or effects on any of the amps because I wanted it to keep it pure. The only thing I've done in post is change the volume levels to make sure that they're matched. But I did EQ 600 hertz out of the Blues Jr. just to see, and it does sound significantly better. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you do have a Blues Jr., you can get an EQ pedal that has a 600 hertz band and just crank that down, and I think it would really help a lot. But there's just this annoying spike to me that really makes the Blues Jr. sound cheap and not pleasing to me. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I've noticed between the two. So which would I choose? I would choose the Tweed Deluxe. But if you only need clean sound and you want to make sure you have enough clean headroom to keep up with a drummer, then the Blues Jr. is a better choice for you. If I only cared about clean, I would save the little bit of money of trying to deal with finding a Tweed Deluxe and just get the Blues Jr. because I think the cleans were very comparable. But if you want really nice saturated tones, then the Tweed Deluxe is definitely the right choice. And although people, and this is a very interesting point that I would like to make, is a lot of people are looking for pedal platforms, right? I hear that word a lot, like I want a pedal platform amp, which a lot of people think is just, I need a clean, really nice clean tone, and then I'll get all of my other sounds from my pedals. Well, I think this comparison is a perfect example of just because it has a good clean sound doesn't mean that it's going to be a good pedal platform. And honestly, I wouldn't recommend the Blues Jr. for a pedal platform amp. I think even though there's less parameters on the Tweed Deluxe, I think it's a lot more versatile because it can take pedals better than the Blues Jr. I think the gain sounds, when I put that tube screamer in front of the amps, sounded significantly better on the Tweed Deluxe than the Blues Jr. The Blues Jr. just does not, once you hit a certain point of overdrive, it just sounds like it just can't handle it, and it just mushed together, not in a cool compressed way like the Tweed Deluxe does, but muddy. The notes sound less distinct. If you go back and listen, I hope you could probably hear what I'm talking about. So 5E3 is more versatile in my opinion and a better platform for a pedal platform amp. This is only part one of a three-part series I'm going to do on these two amps because there's a lot of different comparisons I want to do. The next video I'm going to do is comparing a master volume with an attenuator because the Tweed Deluxe has a attenuator added in it. That was obviously not used in this comparison. The attenuator was off, meaning it was fully open like you would use the amp without one. But I would like to compare the attenuator versus a master volume. I think that would be very interesting. If that's something that would be interesting to you, stay tuned and subscribe, and I'll have that video up shortly. The third video I'm going to do is actually running each amp into each other's speakers and cabinets so we can hear what the amps sound like running through the other's speaker and cabinet. So that will kind of tell us, is it the cabinet and speaker that's causing that unpleasant mid-range in the Blues Jr.? Is the lack of volume in the Tweed Deluxe going to be made up for by running it through that very efficient speaker? Is the lack of bass in the Blues Jr. due to the cabinet? Can we throw it into the Tweed Deluxe's cabinet and speaker and make up for that lack of bass? If you would like to find that out, please subscribe, and I will have those videos posted in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.